Hey there, I'm Genny Perez. I'm a wife, mom, and small business owner. And although I love being all of those things, I'm at the point where I feel like there's something more to life outside of those roles. Does that sound like you? If you're in search of that extra magic, craving a dose of positivity, purpose, and real talk on being worthy, capable, and able, you're in the right place. Let's kick off this journey together, ignite that spark, radiate some positivity, and discover what makes your life and business truly shine. Ready to jump in? Let's spark some radiance together. Hello, and welcome back to the Sparking Radiance podcast. I'm Genny Perez. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And it has been a few weeks, and we've had a few episodes come out, and the love and support continues to come in. And all I can say is, guys, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, honestly. And I just am so excited to see and hear about the transformations that you are also experiencing. And maybe this is just that little spark that you need to open doors to the unlimited possibilities that exist. So again, thank you for being here with me. The other thing I want to mention is that, launching a podcast and, taking on this project has been interesting. Honestly, it's been a learning curve for me, and I thank you for your patience with me. And the only thing I can say, guys, is we can only get better together. And again, I'm so excited that you're here to share this journey with me. All right, so let's jump right on in. Let me give you a little bit of background of what's happening in the Perez household lately. So we're in a position where we're having to make a lot of decisions, business decisions and business. And for some of you that don't know, my husband and I, we actually run the business together. And there are so many decisions that we have to make daily to keep that afloat, right? But we also have some household decisions to make. We have some health decisions to make. With back to school coming back in, we have, school things, and there's always something to decide upon. And I wanted to title this particular episode Decisions, because every day we have to make decisions. What do I eat? What do I wear? What am I going to do today? What do I have planned for the next week? Like, we're always making decisions. And for me, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but for me, I don't like to make decisions. Okay, obviously the daily ones. Okay, I know what I like to eat, right? But I'm talking about like some major decisions that could potentially impact my future. I'm the type of person that I have to, if I feel uncomfortable with making a decision, I, in some essences, avoid them, or I delay them, or I'm filled with fear about making them. But decisions are uncomfortable for me. And I'll give you a perfect example of a character trait that, maybe some of you are this way, but when it comes to us ordering at the restaurant, like, my husband always makes fun of me. Like, he's like, you take forever to order. You have to read the menu thoroughly. And then you end up ordering the same thing that you order all the time. And it's true. I can't deny it. It's true. I will probably order the same thing. And I think part of it is the reason why I choose what I'm familiar with is because I don't like to be disappointed. I don't like to be, if I don't like the outcome, I don't like that feeling. Okay. So I think that sometimes we do that. And it, with something as basic as food, right? That just gives an indicator of other things as well. Like when we're making those big major decisions, like how do you make a decision? For some of us, it's just freezing. Like, I have this, should I move? Freeze. Should I, buy a house? Freeze. Is now a good time to buy a house? Like, just, we're frozen, right? So I wanted to talk about decisions, because there's all these different methods and processes, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit, but I wanted to bring this up because here in the Perez household, like, we are having a lot of decisions that we have to make, that have been handed to us right now. And I just kind of want to explain the process of how we come together and, decide on what to choose. Let's go back to my restaurant example and me not being able to decide what to eat. Okay. So I think there's a deeper connection to that decision-making process. And as I mentioned before, I don't like the feeling of being disappointed of the outcome, right? But I also think that there's a sense of comfort that knowing, or relief, that if I go with a certain option on the menu, that I will know what to expect and I won't be disappointed. And it's a familiarity per se. But let's talk about, like, what are some of the reasons, emotional reasons, why people don't like making decisions, or what they fear most about making decisions. So I just did a little bit of research on that, and most of us choose not to make a decision because we're afraid to fail. Okay. I'm guilty of that for sure. But, making the wrong choice, where the negative consequences could lead, potential failure, regret, loss, embarrassment, all of those things. So fear of failure is a reason. Another reason why we don't like making decisions is maybe we feel overwhelmed. There's too many options. I know, just going back to that menu, if there's too many options on a menu, I freeze, I paralyze. And the reason why is because I don't want to make the wrong choice. And then this is also known as decision paralysis, right? A lot of us have that sometimes, decision paralysis. Analysis, another way to say this is analysis paralysis, right? Where there's just too many options and it's hard to choose which one. I think of this example as, when my kids go into, when they have a Target gift card, for example, and they get to choose the toy of their choice. It's like the excitement in their eyes, and they're just like, there's so many aisle by aisle. Like, there's so many options. I don't want to make the wrong one. Another example of why we delay maybe making decisions is perfectionism, right? We fear that if we don't make the perfect choice, basically by making the perfect choice is perfectionism will often lead to us making decisions that will actually procrastinate the decision, or will avoid it, right? Because if the stars are not aligned perfectly, we just won't proceed. Another example is fear of change. If the decision involves change, it could be unsettling to a lot of us. We may find that discomfort comes when we leave our comfort zone, and so we'll avoid the decision. The other reason why we fear making decisions is maybe we have some kind of social pressure, right? We worry about what others will think of us or judge us if we make that decision. So it's our desire to please others. So what we'll do is we'll avoid it just to avoid criticism and cause hesitation. Another reason why we may not make the decision is because we don't have confidence, right? Lack of confidence. There may be some doubt in our judgment. We maybe have made decisions in the past where they weren't the right ones, and our confidence in our decision-making process can feel overwhelming. Another reason why we may fear decisions is fear of responsibility, right? When it comes to making that decision, we are responsible for the outcome. And for some of us, that weight of responsibility is extremely high. And I definitely see this on the business side, but as a parent as well, because we're responsible for the livelihood and the health of our children and their well-being. This is a huge one that I see a lot of us come across. So I bring these up because I'm sure one of those examples you have maybe felt at one time when you had to make a decision. And it could be quite overwhelming, to be quite honest. It is very overwhelming for many of us. And so what I did was, there are so many books and methods and ways that you can make a decision, right? And it's just finding the right one that works for you. So let's talk about some popular methods. And I just did a general Google search, honestly, and I just Googled popular decision-making methods, and here's what came up. So there's something called the decision tree method, and it's a well-known technique that visualizes communication options, uncertainties, and outcomes. Okay, not really too familiar with that one. There's consensus mapping, and it's a creative process where all participants agree on a decision. So I can see how that would make sense if you're dealing with like a large group of people. Then there's the cost-benefit analysis, which is a widely used method that compares alternatives and is easy to understand. And I can definitely see how that one is used a lot in business, right? So what is the cost and what is the benefit that we get from it? There's the Pareto analysis, and this is also known as the 80-20 rule. And this tool helps identify the most important factors for improving efficiency. Again, another one that you probably see a lot in business. There's also the SWOT analysis, which is abbreviated as SWOT. And what this analysis does is it identifies strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and threats. I think most of us are familiar with that. I think we have all tried that process of writing down the strengths or the weaknesses or maybe the pros and the cons, right? There is also the competitor analysis, and this is a crucial part of the business strategy that helps identify what products are selling and why. Something that would be used in business, okay? And then there's also an analysis called the force field analysis, and this also is known as the barrier and aids analysis. And what this tool does is it helps identify forces that are for or against change. Okay, so this is probably similar to the strength and the weaknesses, pros and cons. So all of these different methods, I bring them up because some of us have used some of them when we had to make decisions, but I bring them up because they seem complicated and they seem overwhelming. When I read these things, they don't give me like the aha moment of, yes, this is the exact tool that I'm going to use to make my decision. I don't feel that. I feel like they're just methods, and they still don't give me any clarity, is what I'm trying to say. And honestly, some of them just seem kind of complicated. And what happens when something's overly complicated? Well, for someone like me, I'll just freeze, or I'll just avoid. I'll back out. I won't make a decision. So how do you make a decision? How can you simplify the decision-making process? And in my search for an answer, a clear answer, a simple answer, I ran across a video by Mel Robbins, and she's an author and podcast host and well-known motivational speaker. And in her video, she says there's two ways you can make a decision, okay? And I'm just kind of paraphrasing what she said here, but you can make a decision with your head, or you can make a decision with your heart and soul. Okay, so when we make a decision with our head, those are like the analytical details. Those are the details in the contract. Those are the terms and conditions per se. But when we make a decision with our heart, that is, we're making a decision with our feeling, with our soul, with who we are, what we value, what we feel we're worth. So that's our heart and soul. And when we make those decisions, her recommendation is whenever you're making a decision, she said, follow your heart. What does your heart say? What does your inner voice, your inner knowing say? What is that soul inside of you saying? What decision is it telling you to make? What is it, what is being pointed out to you? What I will say, a lot of the times when we are making a decision, that first decision that we hear, or that first little whisper in the very beginning, that's probably our heart or our soul talking when we make that decision. And they always say, and I remember this, from being in college, a technique that they say is always go with whatever was that first came to mind. And the reason why is because that's coming from the inside, but not only that, to something with the brain, like it activates like our brains as wonderfully as they're made, they're designed to hold so much information that I'm going to get to the science behind it, but I'm probably butchering that. But basically what it does is the information is in there. It's just whatever pops up first, even though we think that we don't know, it's stored in there. So go with that first inclination, that first whisper, that first answer that you hear, that typically is your heart or your soul that is speaking for that decision. Now, she did say that when you feel in the heart or make a decision in the heart and the soul, you want to turn inward, of course. Okay. Whereas the head is you're looking more on the external, like what are the pros and cons? What are the, again, like I mentioned before, the terms and the conditions of the contract. So how do you know if you're making a decision with your head or with your heart? So she says to ask yourself this simple question. And the question is, does this decision either expand your future, expand your possibilities for life? If it does any of those things, so it expands you, the key word is expands you in some way, then the answer is yes. No matter how terrifying it is. On the opposite end, if the decision you're about to make is going to shrink you, silence you, or inhibit you in any way, then the answer is no. No matter how easy, how comfortable, how simple it may seem to answer, or even how safe it may seem to answer, the answer is no. So she mentions when you use the expand or shrink method, something that happens. So when you expand, does it open the possibilities, or when you shrink, does it close the possibilities? What happens when you use the expand method? It has a short term and it has a long term effect. Okay. So in the short term, when you're using the expand, when you go with the yes, because it expands you, in the short term, it is going to feel uncomfortable. Okay. It's going to feel uncomfortable because there could be major change happening. There could be a situation where there's unknown. Okay. But the long-term effect, if we look at the long-term effect of making a decision that was made from the heart that would expand you, the long-term effect is going to outweigh any of the short-term that's happening or that has happened, right? So you have to keep that in mind when you make those decisions and make it on the notation of being expansive or expanding yourself. It's going to be uncomfortable in the beginning. So she says, brace for impact. Go in with that expectation that it's supposed to feel that way. And if it does, then you're making the right decision. Because in the long term, you're making a decision from your heart. You're making a decision from who you are. And the long-term effect of that is that the quality of your decision, the quality of your life was indeed the right one for you. It was the right decision for you, and it wasn't the decision that may have been the right option to stay safe in that particular moment. So I like this method because it's simple. I ask myself, if it expands my situation, it's a yes. If it shrinks me, if it silences me, it's a no. Okay. So that would work. Making that decision process would work, when you're making a decision for yourself, and kind of use that tool when you're making decisions for your business or for your family as well. But let's talk about, when you have to make a decision with a group of people, or with, your partner or your significant other or your business partner. A lot of times some of us have to make those decisions together. I want to share some advice, and this is for the couples that are listening, I want to share some advice that I received from my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, who were fortunate enough to be married for nearly 45 years. But one of the things that she said was, my mother-in-law had mentioned, was whenever they made a decision as a couple, they owned it. Okay. So when they had to make a decision, whether it be to have kids, to purchase a house, to move locations, they made the decision together. They were in agreement that they were going to make the decision together. And whatever the outcome would be, if they lost the house, if they, whatever the outcome was, they were never going to remind each other of the decision that was made. They were never to kind of remind the other person that the inclination of the decision of who had more say in the decision, right? It was a decision that they made together, and they owned it together. And they can never go back and blame each other. And I think that sometimes happens for us married couples, right? We blame each other for certain decisions, but we can never once that decision is made, you can never go back and blame the other person for that decision. And I kind of liked that free pass, or that it just takes off the burden of, if one person is more opinionated than the other, it takes off that burden, right? It's kind of like the way I see it is that the decision's already made, and it's now we have to deal with it together. So you're already coming to the agreement of whatever the outcome is. The bottom line is it going to expand our relationship? It kind of tying into back to the expansion, right? Like, is it going to deepen our relationship so we don't have that to fall back on? I know that's a little bit tricky, but I think it's very great advice that she gave, and I respect it. And the fact that they were happily married for 45 years, I mean, that just says a lot as well. So when you're making a decision with your significant other, own the decision. You own the decision together, and neither of you can go back on blaming the other for that decision. Now, for those of you that don't have a significant other and are single, one suggestion that I would have is reach out to somebody who has made that decision. I think, and it doesn't necessarily have to be for singles, but, as part of our head portion of making decisions, reach out to someone, find out what they did, what their experience was, ask for their feedback on, what you're thinking of doing, and what they where they may, see things that you don't see. So my suggestion is for singles is ask somebody who's been through it. All right. That's, and not just for singles, but for all of us. Like, that is a great way for us to analyze, learn from other people's mistakes, right? To make our decisions. So once your decision is made, how do you embrace your decision, right? You want to make sure to acknowledge your choice first, okay? You just acknowledge the fact that you made your decision with the best information that you had available to you at the time, okay? This will help you avoid any kind of second guessing or doubts that you may have, okay? You made the decision based upon the available information that you had at the time. The other thing is take responsibility for your decision. And I kind of mentioned this before with my in-laws. Like, they owned that decision, whatever the consequence of that decision was, whether it be positive or negative. If you own the outcome, you're basically empowering yourself to know the difference, and help make better choices in the future. The other thing is, once you make that decision, you want to make sure to focus on the present. The decision has been made. You can't go back with those what if scenarios or past choices, right? Because if you focus on the present, it'll help you make the most of your current decision. Can't go back, can't redo. But what you can do on the reverse is you can learn from your experience, okay? So every decision is going to offer you a learning opportunity, okay? So knowing that the decision will possibly provide a valuable lesson regardless of the outcome, having that open mind will help you learn from the experience. The other thing is, when you make your decision, be kind to yourself. And for some of us, be kind to our partners, right? We have to understand that we all make mistakes. That's part of learning. That's part of growing. We're not going to get it right every single time, but give yourself a little bit of compassion. Similarly to how you would show compassion to a friend, that would, any advice that you would give to them if they were in a similar situation. Of course, commit to your decision. Once the decision has been made, commit to it fully. This will help you reduce any doubt or anxiety. It gives you the momentum to continue with that decision that you made, and also provides the confidence as well. And finally, guys, when you're trying to embrace those decisions to move forward, reach out to somebody. If you're struggling to possibly accept the decision that you made, reach out to a trusted friend, a mentor, a therapist. Reach out to somebody. Sometimes, like we talked about before, they can see things that we can't see. They can give us clarity, and they can give us reassurance that we've made the right decision. So here's our activity for the week. So I know a lot of us have decisions to make, and some of us are going to, in this upcoming week, going to make some major decisions. Some of us have some really big things happening in our lives, and some of us are just maybe a simple decision, right? But I want us to use this technique. So just to remind you, the technique is the expand or the shrink method, okay? So when I'm looking to make a decision, if the decision expands me, so it expands myself, it expands my future, it expands the possibility of my life, then it's always a yes. But if it, on the counter, does the opposite, if it shrinks me, if it silences me, if it inhibits me in any way, then the answer is an automatic no. So our activity for this week is to try to use this method when we're going to make a decision. Does it expand me or does it shrink me? And I really want to hear your feedback. I want to see if this was beneficial in your decision-making process, right? Because the decision-making process is going to look different for all of us, because keep in mind that it's coming from within. It's coming from our own experiences and things like that. So guys, I hope this was helpful for you. I know for me and for the Perez household, we have a lot of moving parts going on, but I think with kind of narrowing in on the decision-making process, it makes those decisions a lot easier, as they come and as they will continue to come. Those decisions aren't going anywhere, guys. With that said, thank you for making the decision to be with me this episode and expand yourself. So the Sparking Radiance podcast, it's a yes, right? We're expanding ourselves. So guys, thanks again so much. Make sure to follow us on sparking.radiance on Instagram. Until next time, guys, keep sparking that radiance. Love y'all. You hear that clap? That's me cheering you on for completing another episode. I don't know about you, but man, that was quick. If you like what you heard, hit the subscribe button or share the episode with someone you think that might need a little spark. And help us grow by leaving a review. Remember, keep sparking that radiance from within. Until next time, shine on!